Okay, and we are live on Facebook again.
Yes.
And we are discussing Jean Harlow.
Yes.
One of our absolute most favorite. It seems like she was born to be a pre-code star.
Yes, we love our Jean.
We love our Jean. And Laura, we were talking just before we went live about how many parallels there are in Bombshell to Jean Harlow's real life.
Yeah, I mean the scene where she's in the rain barrel, right? I mean that's that's not obviously not Jean Harlow's real life, but that's from Red Dust.
Yes.
Yeah, and just sort of being a movie star and all that entails. I think there's some. Do you remember like any of the other references in Bombshell that like parallel Jean Harlow's life? Because there are a bunch of them.
There are a bunch of them. Well, I remember the one scene. She's like, not even Norma Shearer in all her pictures had someone speak as sweetly to her. There's something to that.
Oh, yeah.
So she mentions her studio colleague Norma Shearer, and her family really was kind of taking her for a ride. So
For sure.
sadly, there's a lot of stuff that's not really funny, although it's definitely played for laughs in Bombshell. Her family just basically bilked her for all they could, and it was a really sad situation, honestly.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, well, of course, there's the whole thing with her mother and all of that craziness. But we were also talking earlier about how what the movie says it's about, or doesn't explicitly say, but what the movie has been long thought to be about is the early career of Clara Bow, right? Yeah. So that's interesting too. It's got all these sort of Hollywood, not the early careers, but the years when Clara Bow was a big star.
Well, if you think about it, though, Victor Fleming directed Bombshell, and Victor Fleming was engaged to Clara Bow in the 1920s, and he also directed her in Hula and in Mantrap. So yeah. Victor would know real well what Clara Bow's life was like.
He would sure know. Yeah, but it's interesting that it's sort of a what do we want to call it? A self-aware. It's sort of a self-aware movie,
or meta, as they might say in today's parlance.
Yes, exactly.
And it's also such a fun screwball comedy. I mean, she is rapid fire with the dialogue, and her comic timing is just razor sharp. I think Jean was always so underestimated as an actress.
Yeah, she was, and it's really too bad that she wasn't able to have a longer career and spread her wings more, because I think that she, along with like Carole Lombard, could have gone into different genres and done really amazing things. I mean, Carole Lombard was sort of able to do that a little bit in the early 30s, and it just sort of whet our appetites for what she could have done in the 40s, like as a noir actress if she had lived. And Jean Harlow, I think, had similar potential.
And I could also see either one of them doing like Lucille Ball and going into television. Can you imagine either one of them on television?
Oh, Jean Harlow on television? That would have been just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so unfathomable. For those of you who haven't watched or know about the life of Jean Harlow, she died of basically kidney failure at 26 years old. And it's so heartbreaking to think about what she could have gone on to do. And also heartbreaking because, every time frequently I get people asking me, don't you wish you lived in the past or the 30s, 20s? And I would say no, because I like modern medicine. Like at the time, they didn't have antibiotics till after World War II, I believe. They did not have kidney transplants, kidney dialysis. Like that stuff could have saved her life in another era. And in 1937, that did not exist really. So, it's just.
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons why I think that that's not a great attitude to have, the nostalgia of wouldn't it be great to live in the 30s? Wouldn't it be great to live in the 20s? There was horrendous racism and poverty, and I mean, not that there's not racism and poverty now, but it was different back then, right? And so this nostalgia for earlier days, I think, is a little bit misplaced.
The way I look at it is that I live in 2021. I can enjoy the fashion, the music, the movies, the architecture. I can enjoy the beautiful and cultural, artistic things about that era, but I can also cherish and appreciate the things I have today. And so
Exactly.
I think there's something to be said for getting to have both of those things.
Yeah, yeah. It's wonderful to be able to appreciate. It's I think necessary to appreciate and look to the past for things that we can do better now. But it's also it's at the same time necessary to look at the past in the other way, right? You know, in the way of we should never go back to some things that were the reality back then.
Absolutely. And I love Bombshell. This is to me, if I had to pick a favorite Jean Harlow movie, this would be it. This would hands down be it. I think that
Oh,
I
really?
feel like
Yeah.
this is her signature movie.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is her signature movie. I think that I love Bombshell, and I also love Redheaded Woman. We were thinking about doing Redheaded Woman as well tonight, but we opted for Bombshell, partly because Bombshell is great, and partly because of the timing of the movie. I guess we can tell people what our thinking is with Bombshell. If we start Bombshell at the time that we're scheduled to start Bombshell, it will end at 9 o'clock our time, which is midnight Eastern time, and it'll be the new year for everybody. So we just thought that would be kind of a fun thing.
Yes, and what better way to ring in the new year with Hollywood's reigning sexy bombshell of the 1930s?
Exactly. Yes. But yeah, I adore Bombshell. I think it's a marvelous, as I said before, sort of a marvelously self-aware movie. And there weren't that many at this point in time. There weren't a whole lot of self-aware Hollywood movies, like there was like What Price Hollywood. This was pre-Star is Born. There was, I think that Show People falls into that category of like Hollywood self-awareness. But this is definitely an early film for that type of mentality. I mean, it sort of reached its peak, I think, in Singing in the Rain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And incidentally, both shot by the great Harold Rossin, one of the great cinematographers, very briefly, Harlow's third husband. But
yes, that's what I was just going to say. I was going to say married to, every time I see his name, I always whisper to whoever's sitting next to me, married to Jean Harlow.
Right.
Yes.
I will be at his grave tomorrow morning on the cemetery tour.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
He's at Hollywood Forever?
Yeah, he's at Hollywood Forever, as is Victor Fleming also.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, and he shot Bombshell. He became Harlow's third husband for like less than a year. And then he shot The Wizard of Oz. He shot Singing in the Rain, which is so great that he shot Singing in the Rain because he worked in silent film. So he certainly knew a lot about the topic, to have done Singing in the Rain.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Absolutely. And I love her banter with Lee Tracy together. They are such a good team. Like I would definitely
really
like to see them do more films together.
Yeah. I have a Marion related story about Lee Tracy. It might be a little bit off topic.
That's okay. Tell us. I'm going to eat some soup while we talk.
Oh, okay. Well, it's sort of Marion removed. Marion's niece spent a lot of time at San Simeon, and long story short, her parents were not getting along so well, and so she was spending a lot of time at San Simeon. And when Marion and WR couldn't watch her, they needed someone who could watch her, so they wanted to hire a like a babysitter, like a nanny. And it was Lee Tracy who recommended this woman who had I think been a house cleaner just for him, but she had shown that she was really good with kids. And so Lee Tracy recommended this woman named Carrie Smith, who became Marion's niece's nanny, and stayed with the family through like 3 generations. because of the recommendation of Lee Tracy. So the great niece of Marion, who I am close to, she was raised in many ways by this Lee Tracy's recommendation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of a cool little story. I talk about it very briefly in the book, but it's not really relevant. So, but anyway, that's the Lee Tracy Marion connection.
And if people do want to read about Jean Harlow, and I recommend that they do, of course, Bombshell: The Life and Death of Jean Harlow by David Sten is the definitive biography of her life.
I love
David
that.
also wrote Running Wild, the biography of Clara Bow, both of which are outstanding.
Yeah.
And also Mark Vieira and Daryl Rooney wrote a book, The Bombshell and the Glamour Capital, about Jean Harlow. And I think they are doing right now a revised edition of that book that's going to come out. So I will definitely plug that heavily when it's available.
That's great. Yeah, and I love the David Sten Jean Harlow biography. I think it's seminal. And
yes.
And interestingly too, it was researching that book when David Sten came up with the research on the that cover up, right? Mm-hmm. Girl 27. Yeah, and then he went on to sort of be the was he the producer on the documentary?
Yeah, or he directed it.
He directed it, yeah.
He directed it, produced it, wrote it. He did a lot of stuff. That was really his film. I mean, his.
Yes, it was definitely his film.
Yeah, that film was so powerful and so heartbreaking, and I just wonder how many stories like that are out there that we don't know for every story that we do know.
Yeah, how many cases like that have not been uncovered by people researching other stuff? Because that's the only reason that he found it, was because he was researching Jean Harlow and just came across this thing that had been buried, and then it turned into a big story.
Yeah, and it's just, when that film came out in like 2007 or something, and then when Me Too broke, I called David and I said, wow, your documentary needs to get re-released. And he said, yeah, I agree, he's gonna.
Yeah,
I think he did get a re-release for that film because it was so ahead of the curve in terms of that whole movement, and I think it's just such a powerful film.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was Vanity Fair or one of the
Vanity Fair.
magazines. Yeah. What was that?
Vanity Fair.
Vanity Fair, yeah, did a big article when the Me Too movement broke out about Girl 27.
And I think one of the problems that she undoubtedly faced was the old stereotype: if you're blonde and you're sexy, you can't possibly be smart. You can't possibly be talented. I think they just thought that, you can't be all those things and look that good and have that kind of body. And I'm sure the sexism, the misogyny, just all of that she had to do.
It's too much of a challenge, too much of a threat for the men.
It must have just been really rough to kind of deal with that. And, in her early films, she was a bit wooden. And then I think that Redheaded Woman was a huge breakthrough for her.
Yeah, for sure.
That movie really changed the game and proved that she could be not only red hot sexy, but incredibly funny.
Yeah.
Incredibly fast.
Yeah.
A woman put her on the map, really, in terms of.
Yeah, I love that. I love that movie. And I love her voice. I just love, like you see her and you think this beautiful, like sultry person. And then she talks and it's like, it's like, I love you.
I love seeing that on a big screen. I think one year at TCM they showed Redheaded Woman and the Egyptian, and it like brought the house down.
Yeah, they had to reprogram it. They had to show it again on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a movie that I love seeing that with an audience because it just plays like gangbusters.
Yeah, I mean the TCM festival is just so great for that. Everybody's excited to see their people on the big screen, and they laugh at all the right places, and whereas when you see like the Fathom Events things, in the theater, there are like two other people in the theater and nobody kind of gets it, and it's like who are you? Why are you not laughing at this? But
I've never
yeah,
gone to any of the Fathom events things. I haven't because they never seem to work out with my schedule. A lot of times they program them at Universal City Walk Theater, and it's like I swear, like 15 to 20 something bucks to park there, and
yeah,
I'm like, I really just don't. So I've never even done the Fathom things.
yeah, I try to go to the ones that interest me, you know, like I actually sadly missed on Golden Pond this year. I was going to go with Isabella. Isabella might be watching, but our schedules didn't match up. So I missed it this year, unfortunately. But I try to go whenever I can, just to support it, you know, because I like that TCM does that. You know, I
You're
like,
right. You are right. Yes.
yeah, I'm glad TCM does that. It's just you know, a little bit disappointing sometimes with the people who do come, you know, like, what's going on?
Yeah, I really hope the festival happens this year in 2022. I'm keeping my fingers so tightly crossed that everything will be okay and this will proceed.
Yeah, we just never know, you know. I mean, April, so many things could happen between now and April.
You know, I used to, before the pandemic, I used to be a big planner and I had a day timer. I'd write a whole year's worth of plans and goals and things. I'm kind of nervous to do that past like a day or two
Yeah,
these days because I have seen like literally a year's worth of my plans in 2020 just go up in smoke. So now I'm like, well, this week I might try to plan something, but I'm really tentative about things. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, exactly. Like we just don't know. It changes from day to day. Like the Omicron surge happened in like a week. You know, like we were like feeling okay, and then all of a sudden we can't go anywhere.
Well, that contributed to this airport nightmare that I just dealt with the other day. I flew from my family's home in Georgia back to LA. It took 16 hours door to door. And part of it was Omicron, part of it was the weather around the nation and stuff like that. But it's so expensive to fly back home. I kind of have to book that trip pretty far ahead of time. But then I didn't know all this was going to happen when I booked it. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's tricky. It's very tricky.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the comments. We have a bunch of comments right now.
Oh, cool.
Bombshell.
Sorry, I got off track for a minute there.
Yeah, Bombshell and Red Dust are my favorites. Leslie Apple says, yeah, I also love Red Dust. I think that Red Dust is so socially interesting. You know, I showed earlier on. I showed as much as I could. The photo I have in my room of Mary Astor and Jean Harlow and Red Dust, and how there's this sort of reversal of roles, like reversal of who's the upstanding one and who is the, you know, not so upstanding one. Daryl's memorabilia, yes, indeed. Barbara went to see went to see on Golden Pond. There's just, yeah, that's my experience too, that I like supporting it, but there's like nobody in the theater. So it's a little bit depressing sometimes.
Part of that theater experience is so important. You know, I think that's honestly why we all go to TCM Fest because, you know, the fact is we've seen most of these movies that they show, but seeing them together with this group of people that are this passionate and enthusiastic, it's like an adrenaline rush.
Yeah, I've really missed that these past few years. I mean, you know, there are a couple of other events that are similar, like the San Francisco Silent Film Festival,
which I miss with all my heart.
which I miss so much. And you know, just other places where people who love the same thing you love can come together and watch things, but they've all disappeared with the pandemic. So
I know I'm probably being overly optimistic maybe, but I cling to hope that the things we love are not going to be gone forever. They're going to come back, that,
yeah,
you know, we are going to have this back again. So
yeah. I mean, I think our society has changed pretty much permanently in some ways, but hopefully we can get back to the things that really
Because it's just, I mean, watching him at home, I know a lot of people that have giant screen TVs and sophisticated home entertainment systems, and that's good and fine. But I still don't think that captures the same magic and the same energy as
Yeah.
being in a theater. It just doesn't, you know? And to me, no technology is ever going to replace that experience.
No, right. I mean, you can't, unless you're with, 400 other people, 400 of Jean Harlow's biggest fans.
Right?
Yeah. Um, Somebody else was saying something. Oh, that voice is. Oh yeah, somebody. Who was it who said? Oh, Amy Sternberg says that she loves dinner at 8, and I was gonna talk about more about Jean Harlow's voice. It's like you see her in this beautiful, elegant negligee, and she's like, I was reading a book the other day.
Expect her to have a voice like this that's very sophisticated, and you don't expect her to have this
Yeah.
working class accent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love her and Marie Dressler in that movie together.
She's just, I think Marie Dressler needs to be better appreciated.
Oh my gosh, yes, 1,000 times yes. I want to do a Marie Dressler Hollywood Kitchen.
Yes.
Because I've recently found out there is a museum that's going to open in Canada eventually, hopefully this year, and it's going to be dedicated to women in film. And
I know about this. Yeah, it's Canadian women in film.
Yes, Canadian women in film. And Marie Dressler, Norma Shearer, Mary Pickford, they're all going to be featured. So I would love to maybe see if I could partner up with them and do like a Marie Dressler Hollywood Kitchen, which I just need to find a good recipe for. So that I shall work on.
Yeah, I'm sure that somebody must have a Marie Dressler recipe, some magazine or something.
Yeah, I've got to just look. I've got so many piles of cookbooks, and I started an Excel database, and unfortunately I did not get very far on that project, but I need to get on that and kind of have a database where I just go and there's everything, alphabetical. And
yeah, Kristen says with Norma there too. Yeah, Norma, Mary Pickford, Marie Dressler.
Oh, Faye Ray, also Canadian.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a perfect world, I would love to go to Canada and be at this museum, but we will see.
Is it in Toronto? Is that?
I think so. I have to double check that, but I would love to come up there and see this museum when it's open to the public.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah. And Harlow was from, maybe another reason for her accent is she was born, I think, in Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, or Kansas City, somewhere in the Midwest. Yeah. So maybe that's another reason that she has, that specific accent or way of speaking.
Yeah, I mean, it almost sounds, in some ways, it almost sounds New Yorky, but she's not from New York. She's from the Midwest. But yeah, it's fun to listen to her.
And I love watching her with Gable because we've already talked about Gable somewhat today because of Polly Circus, but he had sizzling red hot chemistry with every woman he co-starred with. I mean, he and Norma Shearer, red hot. He and Jean Harlow. He and Greta Garbo. I don't think he and Jeanette MacDonald had that great a chemistry in San Francisco, but that's just my opinion. And that's the only time I've ever seen him not burn up the screen with his female co-star.
Yeah. Well, he and Nelson Eddy are kind of far apart from each other, so
there you go. But nothing against Jeanette. I just didn't feel their chemistry was quite on the level of the Harlow Shearer,
Yeah, well, she's also a different type, a different type than the Harlow Shearer.
They had such hot chemistry. I saw some quote somewhere that said, "I've never seen two people."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's true, and I mean he must have something. I mean, some maybe it's his gaze, just the way he looks at people. Yeah.
I think Cary Grant had the same thing. I think some of them had that ability to where.
Yeah. Cary Grant did have good chemistry with a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think think chemistry is what is missing in a lot of modern movies, because, you know, you see a lot of modern films. I can't think of that many screen teams of the modern age that are that red hot, that are that sexy, that are that combustible. I'm at a loss to name them. I don't know if you guys can come up with any, but I mean, maybe Kate and Leo in Titanic like 20 something years ago, but can you guys think of any modern screen couple or teen that has that?
I have to think about that. I can't really think of anybody right offhand, but somebody, Chris Reaney said, Jeanette MacDonald and Red Hot usually aren't used in the same sentence.
That is
Very true. Very true.
Not to knock her talent at all. I mean, you know,
but she is very, very beautiful, and of course she was known for her legs. You know, like, so who knows? Maybe for some people. Yeah, I mean, I know several people who are huge Jeanette MacDonald fans. So she's definitely, you know, she has her people.
Oh, she certainly does.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the Gable Crawford films. He just really, the 30s were just a complete heyday for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Without a doubt. And in thinking about Harlow, it's just interesting to kind of follow her evolution of her talent from those very early roles where she's very wooden and awkward, but she's so undeniably sexy that it almost doesn't matter. And then she got so many bad reviews, but she kept getting work. And then she just got better and better and better. And, you know, the jump, as David Sten has frequently said, the jump from, you know, Public Enemy to Redheaded Woman, it really is a transformation, as he says. And it's like a different person at that point.
Yeah. Amy Sternberg says, I wonder what ever happened to Jean Harlow's big star sapphire ring.
That is a mystery. And also, I think Carol Lombard had a star sapphire ring like that. I think Myrna Loy did. Those seem to have been very, very trendy at the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure. I know that they did find, and I'm sure Amy knows this too, they did find the painting that Harlow's mother had commissioned. And Daryl Rooney, I think, is the person who tracked that down. And a few years ago, he curated a beautiful exhibition they did at the Max Factor Museum in Hollywood.
Yeah, I remember going to that and seeing it. It's very, very well done.
And what also strikes me about Bombshell too is just Harlow's sheer maturity. I think she's 21, 22 in this movie. And
I mean, it's amazing how young she was just in everything she did. She died so young, you know, she died so young, and she had this huge career.
She just went through so much at such a startlingly young age, and to have the kind of on-screen poise, confidence, maturity, wit that she had at that age, it just kind of blows me away.
Yeah.
And I think she's just such an interesting person. I find her just endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to her, you know, there's a lot to analyze, you know, like her, obviously her career, but also her relationship with her mother, her relationship with her fans, you know, and just who she was in Hollywood. Yeah, she and Marion Davies were very close.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, they, you know, Jean came to a bunch of Marion's parties. I mean, it sort of makes sense. She and Carol Lombard and Marion were kind of similar personalities, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
also another thing about Jean Harlow is that, and again, it's in the Bombshell book by David Sten, is the transformation from the pre-code Jean Harlow to once the code came in, and they kind of revamped her image, and they dyed her hair more what they called the shade of brownette. Mm-hmm. So she's more like a golden brown kind of hair color, and her characters were far less brassy and sexual, obviously, because of the code. So her career really took a huge turn after the code.
Yeah, like if you watch Libeled Lady, and Libeled Lady, she's you know, she's still Jean Harlow, but she's very not diluted quite so much, but shifted. Yeah.
She was at 11 in the pre-code, and she's more like at a 4 or 5 after the code.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but of course that was the era more than anything, as you said,
Yeah.
they had to sort of tone her down because otherwise it's like, oh, no, we're gonna get censored. So
Exactly.
yeah. Well, what do you think? Do you want to switch over to the other Zoom link? Have people have some time to get on, and then
Sure.
if you want to start at 7:25 so that we can end at 9.
Okay, well, do you want to keep talking about Harlow and take questions from people, or
Sure.
should we just-
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we
I'm
can.
game to do that.
Yeah.
And I'll have to repost the link in the comments about Harlow's hot rolls because again,
Oh,
those are
yeah.
so good. Oh my gosh, highly recommend.
Do we want to do that here? Do we want to take more questions on Harlow here?
Okay, well, why don't we do it? Let's see. Let's do it at the Zoom chat. So if everybody watching us, if you've already emailed Laura, she will send you the link and you can watch the movie with us, and we'll go into a private Zoom chat here. So hit her up on Facebook, and we will see you guys in just a minute or two on Zoom.
Yeah, great.
All right, see you there.
Okay. All right.